My name is Ilara. I am 89 years old, and I'm going to tell a story that few can hear without crying. It is my story, the story of how I raised 5 beautiful children, all by myself, with every ounce of love in my withered heart. And today I spend my days in a sterile room. The only view from my window is a sliver of gray sky, and the only visitor is the nurse who checks my pills. No familiar face, no voice that calls me Mama ever comes. In my younger days, our home was always full of laughter, of sticky fingers and boisterous arguments. I remember stitching up ripped trousers, singing lullabies late into the night, my arms aching but my heart overflowing. Daniel, my Daniel, so quick to smile, with a dimple just like his father's. And Clara, my baby girl, so delicate, always wanting to help me bake. 5 little mouths to feed, 5 futures to worry over. I worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs. Scrubbing floors, mending clothes, anything to keep them warm, to put food on their plates. They had everything I never did. Everything. Now the only sounds are the rustle of a nurse's uniform and the distant clang of meal trays. The silence. It's a living thing in this room, pressing against my ears until they ache. My hands, they used to knead dough, comfort fevers. Now they mostly tremble, restless, with no one to hold. Soon I'll be 90 years old. The nursing home staff will probably bring a small cake. Bless their hearts. But a birthday? What is a birthday without your own children? My grandson, little Thomas, he doesn't even know my name now, does he? It's not about ingratitude, not exactly. My John, he said he was just so busy. And Maria, she had her own family, her own troubles. I understand. But it's about what happens when a mother's love isn't enough to keep the threads of family from unraveling completely. I gave them every drop of my strength, every dream. And now I'm here, a ghost in my own life. If you have elderly parents, please, listen to the end. Listen to my story. It might still be time to not make the same mistake my children did. Don't let your mama, your papa fade away in silence. Don't let their last years be filled with this aching, cold emptiness. Today marks 1,047 days since my Daniel, my beautiful Daniel with his father's eyes and my own stubborn streak, last answered my call. 1,247 sunsets I've watched from this window, each one painting the same empty canvas across my heart. The phone beside my bed. It sits there, heavy and silent, a museum piece of a forgotten era, a constant reminder of the voices I no longer hear. It rings for the nurses, for the staff, for the wrong numbers sometimes. Never for me, never for Mama. But I remember. Oh, how I remember. My Daniel, my little boy. His face sticky with chocolate cake from my own oven, calling me his queen. He'd climb into my lap, even when he was getting too big, smelling of sunshine and mischief. I remember the scent of cinnamon and nutmeg that filled our small kitchen every Christmas, a scent that promised joy and warmth, a haven for my 5 children. The table, a patchwork of mismatched chairs, groaned under the weight of my cooking. But mostly, it hummed with the symphony of their laughter, their whispered secrets, their boisterous arguments that I'd quiet with a single look. Clara, my delicate Clara, her tiny hands helping me roll out pie dough, flour dusting her nose. Robert, always the joker, hiding vegetables under his plate. Little twins, Leo and Lena, tangled up in Christmas lights, giggling until their sides hurt. If you knew what I discovered at the very end of this story, what truly broke a mother's heart into pieces too small to ever mend, you might still have time to avoid making the same mistake my children did. You might still have time to hold your mother's hand, to listen to her stories, before her voice, like mine, becomes nothing but an echo in a sterile room. The memory of Daniel calling me his queen wasn't just a fleeting moment. It was a cornerstone of my early motherhood. He was my first, born when I was barely out of girlhood myself, a widow before I truly understood what a wife was. His father, God rest his soul, taken by the mines before Daniel even saw his first birthday. I remember holding that tiny bundle, so fragile, so utterly dependent, and making a silent vow to the heavens. This child will never want for love, not for care, not for a mother's fierce devotion. We lived in a tiny cottage then, just 2 rooms, but it felt like a palace when Daniel was there. His first steps, wobbly and triumphant, right into my waiting arms. His first words, Mama. Not milk, not ball, but Mama. A word that still echoes in my bones, even when no one speaks it anymore. I remember one summer Daniel must have been about 6 or 7. He had a fever, a bad one, his little body burning up, his breath ragged. I sat by his bedside for 3 days and 3 nights, sponging his forehead, whispering prayers, singing lullabies I'd learned from my own mother. I didn't sleep, barely ate. The fear was a cold, sharp blade in my chest. When the fever finally broke, and he opened his eyes, clear and bright, he looked at me, his little hand reaching for my face, and he said, his voice raspy, Mama, you're my queen. You saved me. My heart, already so bruised by life, swelled until I thought it might burst with pure, unadulterated love. It was just a child's simple words, but to me they were a coronation. I carried those words, those golden words, through every hardship, every sleepless night, every thankless chore. They were my crown, my strength. Then came Clara, my sweet Clara. She was sunshine, a delicate bloom that needed careful tending. Unlike Daniel's boisterous energy, Clara was quiet, observant, always drawing, always humming. She had a knack for baking, even as a tiny thing. I recall her standing on a stool, barely tall enough to see over the kitchen counter, her tiny fingers meticulously sifting flour, her tongue peeking out in concentration. We'd bake apple pies together, a recipe handed down from my grandmother. The smell of those apples, mingling with cinnamon and the warmth of the oven, was the scent of home, of childhood, of a love that was kneaded into every crust. Mama, she'd say, this pie tastes like hugs. And it did. It always did. I remember her first school play, a little fairy with glitter on her cheeks, her voice a tiny whisper, but her eyes shining with pride when she saw me in the audience. I had stitched her costume myself, every sequin a tiny prayer for her happiness. And then Robert, my robust, mischievous Robert. He was a force of nature, a whirlwind of energy and ideas, always climbing trees, always getting into scrapes, always coming home with a ripped knee or a tear in his trousers that I'd patch up with practiced ease. Robert made me laugh. He was the one who could turn a dreary day into an adventure, finding treasures in puddles and stories in shadows. He wanted to be a fireman, then an astronaut, then a famous artist. I remember him painting a mural on his bedroom wall, a giant, clumsy spaceship launching into a starry night. I should have been angry about the paint on the wallpaper, but I just stood there, my hands on my hips, a smile fighting its way through my exasperation. His enthusiasm was infectious. He once brought me a bouquet of dandelions, declaring them the prettiest flowers in the whole wide world, just for my mama. He didn't have money for roses, but those dandelions wilting slightly in his grubby fist were more precious than any jewel. My twins, Leo and Lena. Oh, my little bookends. They arrived unexpectedly, a double blessing and a double challenge. 2 tiny mouths to feed, 2 tiny bodies to dress, 2 sets of cries to soothe. Life became a blur of diapers and sleepless nights. But their presence filled our small home with such an overwhelming sense of completeness. They were inseparable, a secret language only they understood, finishing each other's sentences, mirroring each other's gestures. I remember trying to teach them to read, sitting with them both on my lap, 1 book for 2 pairs of eager eyes. They'd point to the letters, their little fingers tracing the words, their combined voices a soft murmur. Their first words, though, weren't Mama immediately. They were Leo Lena and Lena Leo, as if their own names were intrinsically linked. But eventually they learned to call me Mama, their voices merging into a sweet, double chorus. I still keep a faded photograph of them, about 5 years old, dressed in matching blue overalls, holding hands, beaming at the camera. That photo, it's tucked away in the nightstand drawer here. Sometimes late at night I pull it out and trace their tiny faces. They were so vibrant, so full of life. Our Christmases, those were truly magical. I scrimped and saved every penny, mended clothes until they practically disintegrated, all to ensure there was a present for each of them, a proper meal on the table. The aroma of roasted chicken mixed with my famous gingerbread cookies would fill every corner of our little home. The tree, always a bit lopsided, decorated with handmade ornaments and strings of popcorn, would glow with a warmth that had nothing to do with the electric lights. I remember watching them, their eyes wide with wonder, tearing open their modest gifts. A wooden toy soldier for Robert, a new set of crayons for Clara, a simple doll for Lena, a train for Leo, and a sturdy pair of boots for Daniel. Their joy, that was my truest gift. Their squeals of delight, their hugs, the way their little hands would cling to me. That was my reward. My hands then were never idle, always kneading, always cleaning, always comforting. Now they mostly tremble, restless, with no one to hold, no dough to knead, no child to comfort. I remember the day Daniel graduated high school, the first in our family to do so. My heart swelled with a pride so fierce it almost hurt. He looked so handsome in his borrowed suit, his cap slightly askew. He found me in the crowded hall afterwards, his eyes shining. "Mama," he said, "I did it for you. Everything." And I believed him. I wrapped my arms around him, tears streaming down my face, whispering, "My brilliant boy, my wonderful Daniel." It felt like all the sacrifices, all the sleepless nights, all the scrubbing and mending had been worth it for that single moment. He was going to make something of himself, I knew it. He was going to soar. All my children they were my universe. Every scraped knee, every heartbreak, every triumph. I was there. I was their anchor, their confidant, their fiercest protector. I taught them to be kind, to be honest, to work hard. I taught them the value of family, of sticking together. I remember sitting around the old kitchen table telling them stories of my own childhood, of their grandparents, weaving a tapestry of family history, trying to instill in them a sense of belonging, a root system that would ground them no matter where life took them. The house always smelled of something good. Fresh bread, laundry drying by the fire, sometimes just the clean scent of soap after I'd scrubbed the floors on my hands and knees. It was a humble home, but it was alive, full of purpose, full of noise, full of love. And Lara was the beating heart of it all. I believed, truly believed, that such a love, such a family, could never be broken. I poured every drop of my soul into that belief. Now the only smells are antiseptic and stale air. The only sounds are the quiet hum of fluorescent lights and the distant wail of an ambulance passing by. My mind, it wanders sometimes, playing these memories like old worn records. And each time the contrast, it's a physical blow. To have had so much life, so much purpose, so much family, and to be left with this vast, echoing emptiness. Soon I'll be 90 years. The staff here will probably bring a small cake. Bless their hearts. But a birthday! What is a birthday without your own children, your own flesh and blood, to share it with? My grandson, little Thomas, Daniel's boy. He doesn't even know my name now, does he? He wouldn't recognize me. The thought makes my chest ache. A dull, constant throb. He was the one who last called me Grandma. Such a sweet piping voice. And now, nothing. Just the silence. This loud, heavy silence that presses down on me, day after day after day. It didn't happen all at once, you see. No, abandonment isn't like a sudden storm, a clap of thunder and then silence. It's more like a plant dying without water. Slowly, subtly, the leaves begin to wilt. The vibrant color fades. And then, Without you even noticing the exact moment, it's just gone. A dry husk. That's how it was. A slow, agonizing withdrawal of warmth, of light, of life itself, until all that was left was this desiccated heart. The first crack in my world, I remember it like it was yesterday, was my 75th birthday. 75 years young, I thought then. Still strong, still capable. I'd spent the week before baking my special lemon poppy seed cake, the one Daniel used to beg for, the one Clara loved to decorate. I polished the old oak table until it gleamed, arranged my best china, the one my own mother had given me, a wedding gift, for the first time in years. I bought balloons, silly bright ones, because Leo and Lena always loved balloons. I even put on my blue dress, the one Robert once said made me look like an angel. I waited. The phone rang a few times that morning. My neighbor, bless her heart, a friend from church. But not my children. Noon came. I laid out the plates. I lit the candles on the cake, 75 tiny flames flickering, casting dancing shadows across the empty chairs. The smell of lemon and poppy seed, usually so comforting, became a suffocating weight in the still air. I kept telling myself, they're just busy. Traffic, maybe. One of the children is sick. I called Daniel's house, then Clara's. Voicemail, all of them. Just cheerful, recorded voices telling me to leave a message. I left a message, a bright, chirpy one, pretending everything was fine, pretending I wasn't sitting in a silent house with a cake for 5 and candles burning down to nothing. Just calling to say hello, my darlings. A lovely day, isn't it? Give my love to the little ones. I didn't want to be a bother, you see. I didn't want them to feel guilty, so I waited. The cake went uneaten, the candles burned out, and the silence. That was the loudest gift of all. After that, the excuses became routine, like a well-worn path. Mama, I'm so sorry. Work is just crazy this week. We have this huge deadline. That was Daniel usually. Always work. His voice, once so full of laughter and boyish excitement, grew clipped, rushed. I'll call you next week, I promise. He'd never quite say when, just next week. Next week turned into next month, then a quick phone call that felt more like a chore than a connection. I'd try to tell him about the rose bushes or a new recipe I'd tried. That's nice, Mama. He'd interrupt, already sounding distracted. Look, I really have to run. Thomas has soccer practice. Love you, bye. And then the click. I'd be left holding the dead phone, the sound of his hurried departure echoing in the quiet room. My Daniel, who once called me his queen, Clara, my sweet Clara. She used to visit every Sunday for tea, our special time. Then it became every other Sunday, then once a month. Then, oh, Mama, I can't this weekend. The children have a school project due, and then there's Sarah's ballet recital. You understand, don't you? A mother's schedule is just impossible. Her voice, once soft and melodious, grew strained, apologetic. Always apologetic, but never present. She'd send cards sometimes. Beautiful cards, always with a picture of her lovely family. But I wanted her, not a piece of paper. I wanted to hear her voice, see her smile, feel her hand in mine. Like when we baked pies together. Mama, you're so quiet, she'd say on the phone, a hint of irritation in her tone. Are you feeling all right? You're not being lonely, are you? You have your garden, I'd quickly reassure her. Oh no, dear, I'm perfectly fine. Just enjoying the quiet. Don't you worry about me. I learned to hide the tremor in my voice, the ache in my chest. I didn't want to be a burden. Robert, my mischievous Robert, he moved across the country for a job. It's a huge opportunity, Mama. For the family! He'd call even less often, his voice crackling over the long distance. The flights are just so expensive, and with the kids' school breaks, it's impossible to coordinate. He meant to come back, he said. Next summer for sure, Mama. We'll spend a whole month with you. Next summer became a mythical time, always just out of reach. He sent postcards, scenic views of mountains and oceans, but They felt cold, impersonal. Sometimes when he did call, I'd ask about his children, my grandchildren. How is little Emma? Did she get her pony yet? He'd laugh, a hollow distant sound. Mama, you remember everything, don't you? She's doing great. Look, I've gotta go, gotta pick up dinner. The twins, Leo and Lena. They married, had their own lives. Lena became a busy real estate agent. Mama, my phone is ringing off the hook. I just can't keep up. But I'm thinking of you always. Leo, he had a small business, a landscaping company. So much work, Mama. People always want their lawns perfect. Maybe I'll swing by next week if I'm in the neighborhood. He never was. I understood. I truly did. Life gets busy. Children grow up. They have their own families, their own responsibilities. I told myself this day after day. But the space they left behind, it grew larger, colder, like a creeping shadow, enveloping everything. Then came the day they suggested the nursing home. It wasn't a question, not really. It was a pronouncement. Daniel, Clara, and Robert were there. Leo and Lena were too busy to make it. We were sitting in my living room, the same room where they had unwrapped Christmas presents, where Daniel had climbed into my lap for comfort. The scent of pine from my Christmas tree, long gone, still lingered in my mind. Mom. Daniel started, his voice firm, almost practiced. We've been talking. We think it's time for you to consider a safer environment. My heart plummeted. Safer? My home, my sanctuary, where I had raised them, where I had poured my entire life. Clara, her eyes darting away from mine, chimed in. It's for your own good, Mom. You fell last month, remember? What if something serious happened and no one was here? She held my hand, but it felt cold, distant, a token gesture. They have nurses, Mom, Robert added, trying to sound reassuring, but his voice was tight, round the clock. Care, activities, you wouldn't be alone. Alone? I was never alone here. I had my memories. I had my garden. I had their photographs. Their ghosts. I tried to protest. My voice, usually strong, was a thin whisper. But my garden, my roses, who will tend to them? And my books? My mother's china. Daniel cut me off gently. Mom, you can't manage the garden anymore. And the house is too big. Too much to clean. It's not safe. This isn't a discussion. It's what's best. Best for whom? I wanted to scream. Best for you? So you don't have to worry? So you don't have to visit? But the words caught in my throat. The pain was too deep, too sharp. I looked at their faces. These children I had nurtured, protected, loved with every fiber of my being. Their expressions were not unkind, not exactly, but resolute. They had already decided. I saw no room for my wishes, my feelings. I saw only the reflection of their own convenience. I stared at Daniel, my firstborn, the boy who called me Queen. His gaze was unwavering. It was then I understood. I was no longer their mother. I was a problem to be solved, an obligation to be outsourced. I didn't want to be a burden, so I accepted in silence. A silent nod, a single tear tracing a path down my wrinkled cheek. It tasted of salt and bitter resignation. The move itself was a blur of efficiency and quiet brutality. They came, all 5 of them this time, though Leo and Lena left early, muttering about appointments. They didn't come to help me pack. They came to empty my house. They only took what was necessary, they said. The rest, Daniel declared, gesturing vaguely around the packed living room, just wouldn't fit. It's too much stuff, Mom. Stuff? It wasn't stuff. It was my life. My old rocking chair, the one I had nursed all 5 of them in, comforting them through fevers and nightmares, its wood worn smooth by years of use, was deemed too bulky. No room, Mom. My grandmother's quilt, pieced together from scraps of my mother's dresses, soft and fragrant with lavender and memories. Too old, Mom. It'll just get damaged. They tossed it into a box marked donation. I bit my lip until I tasted blood. My collection of poetry books, dog-eared and beloved, each one a companion through lonely nights. They have a library at the home, Mom. You won't need these. My gardening tools, the ones Robert had used to help me plant at. My first rosebush, now lying in a dusty pile by the back door. Someone else can use these, Mama. You won't be gardening anymore. They took a few changes of clothes, a photograph album, mercifully, and my worn Bible. That was all. Everything else, the tangible threads of my history, my identity, the physical manifestations of my love, were stripped away. My home, once a vibrant tapestry, was being unraveled thread by thread, piece by piece. I felt like a ghost watching my own life being dismantled. I didn't cry then. The tears were frozen inside me, a block of ice in my chest. I pretended everything was fine, a fixed smile on my lips, nodding whenever they spoke, offering to help even when my hands trembled too much to lift anything. I didn't want to be a bother. The last visit before total abandonment. It was Daniel again, my Daniel. He drove me to the nursing home, a sterile-smelling place with polished floors and the faint scent of disinfectant. My heart was a stone in my stomach. He walked me to my small, impersonal room, the walls bare, the single window looking out onto a brick wall. He sat me down on the edge of the unfamiliar bed. He didn't meet my eyes. "Well, Mom," he said, his voice unusually soft, almost tender. A fleeting echo of the boy he once was. "This is it. It's nice, isn't it? Very clean." I looked around. A single bed, a small dresser, a plastic chair. No rocking chair, no books, no scent of lemon and poppy seed. It was a waiting room, not a home. "We'll be back soon, Mama," he said, standing suddenly urgent. He gave me a quick, awkward hug, his body stiff. "Promise. We'll come every week. We'll set up a schedule. Clara will bring the kids. Robert will visit when he's in town." Empty promises, whispered into the echoing void of my new room. I heard the lies, but I clung to the hope, a desperate drowning woman grasping at a fragile reed. Every week. "That would be lovely, my Daniel," I whispered, holding onto his hand, trying to draw strength from him. His hand felt cold, his grip already loosening. "Okay, Mom, I really gotta go now. Big meeting tomorrow." He pulled away, then turned, walking quickly out of the room, leaving me sitting on the edge of the bed, clutching the phantom warmth of his hand, the door closing with a soft final click. That was it. The last time I saw him. The last time I felt the fleeting touch of my firstborn. The nursing home isn't bad. Not in the cruel way you see in those old films. It's clean. The staff are efficient. They give you your pills. They bring your meals. But it's the coldness that kills. Not the temperature, but the absence of warmth. Of real human connection. The hurried footsteps in the hallway, the clipped tones of the nurses, the impersonal questions during mealtime. "How are we today, Ilara?" Not Mama, not Mrs. Anderson, just Ilara, the other residents. They sit in their wheelchairs, staring blankly ahead, or sometimes their eyes meet yours, and you see it, the same profound loneliness, the same unanswered questions. Mrs. Henderson always clutching a faded photograph of a young man, murmuring, "My son, my beautiful boy." Mr. Petrov, who tries to talk to anyone who passes, telling stories of a life long past, his voice ignored, unheard. We are all here, monuments to forgotten lives. My meals are brought on a tray, eaten alone in my room. The food is bland, tasteless. Sometimes I pretend to save a piece of cake, a sweet pastry, hoping beyond hope that someone will visit, and I can offer them a treat. But the tray is always collected, the uneaten portion discarded. I talk to my old photographs now, the ones they allowed me to keep. My children's faces frozen in time, eternally young, vibrant, loving. "Daniel," I whisper to his smiling face, "remember when you called me your queen? Clara." I trace her delicate smile. "Do you still bake apple pies? Robert, my little prankster, what adventures are you having now? Leo, Lena, my little bookends, do you still hold hands?" The silence is so loud it hurts my ears. It presses in on me, suffocating. My hands still tremble, not from Parkinson's, but from longing. The longing for a familiar touch, a loving voice, a child who remembers my name. They changed the locks on my old house. I heard from a passing nurse who'd seen my old street. Changed the locks, and with them, they changed the lock on my heart. I am locked out too, locked out of their lives, out of their memories. I'm just an old woman, waiting for the day I fade away, completely and utterly, into the silent, cold emptiness. You know what's worse than death? Being alive and forgotten. A breathing shadow. A vessel of memories with no one to share them with. That is my daily existence now. Each morning the day starts the same. A rustle at the door, the click of a latch, and then a cheerful voice. Always a different nurse. Always too loud. Good morning, Alara. Time for your vitals! They flip on the fluorescent light, blindingly bright, chasing away the gentle shadows that are my only companions through the long nights. I lie there pretending to be more asleep than I am, just for a few extra moments of peace before the world descends. My limbs ache, not a sharp, searing pain, but a deep, dull throb that tells me my body is weary, so very weary, of this life it's still clinging to. I get up slowly, each movement a conscious effort. The same drab gown, the same worn slippers. There's no point in choosing an outfit. No one sees me. No one cares if my dress matches my mood. My vanity, like everything else, withered away with the last visit from my children. I wash my face, staring at my reflection. Who is this woman? These deep lines, these cloudy eyes. I try to see the girl I once was, the mother who juggled 5 children and 2 jobs, the woman who laughed freely and loved fiercely. But she's gone, replaced by this ghost, this pale imitation, whose only purpose is to take up space until her time is done. Breakfast is brought on a tray. Oatmeal, usually. Sometimes a dry piece of toast. I pick at it. My appetite, it vanished somewhere between Daniel's last hurried goodbye and Clara's last apologetic call. I eat out of obligation, out of the need to keep this body going, even though my soul is already a hollowed-out shell. The nurses encourage me. Come on, Alara, you need your strength. Strength for what? To sit in this chair? To stare at that window? To wait for a phone call that never comes? I swallow each bite, a bitter pill mixed with the bland food. After breakfast, I'm supposed to participate in activities. Bingo, Alara? Or perhaps the sing-along? They ask, their voices bright, practiced. I usually decline. The noise, the forced cheerfulness, the vacant stares of the other residents. It's too much. It only magnifies my own solitude. So I retreat to my room, my sanctuary, my prison. I sit by the window. The sliver of sky, always gray, never changes. I look at the photographs they let me keep. Daniel, a mischievous grin on his chocolate-stained face, calling me his queen. Clara, her tiny hands covered in flour, her eyes alight as we baked pies. Robert, scraped knees and a bouquet of dandelions. Leo and Lena, my little bookends. Holding hands, their smiles radiant. I touch their faces, their smooth, youthful faces, still so full of life, so full of love. My Daniel, I whisper, tracing the curve of his smile. My sweet Clara, you baked the best pies, didn't you, my darling? I tell them about my day, about the bland oatmeal, about the nurse who seemed kind this morning, about the silence. I know they can't hear me, but it's the closest thing I have to a conversation. It's better than the deafening quiet. The phone sits on the nightstand, a silent sentinel. I dust it every day, even though it never rings for me. Every faint sound in the hallway, every distant buzzer, makes my heart give a tiny, pathetic flutter. Is that it? Is that them? And then it passes. The hope, once a roaring fire, has dwindled to a single flickering ember, threatening to extinguish itself with every passing hour. I try not to look at it too often. It's a cruel reminder of what I've lost. Holidays are the worst. Mother's Day. Oh, Mother's Day. The nursing home staff, God bless their well-meaning hearts, tried to make it special. They put up decorations, pastel streamers, and offered a special brunch. But the lobby was filled with families, with children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, all bringing flowers, cards, hugs. The air hummed with laughter, with joy, with the sound of lives still connected. I saw Mrs. Henderson, her face alight as her son brought her a bouquet of roses. I saw Mr. Petrov, a rare smile gracing his lips as his daughter spoon-fed him cake. I couldn't bear it. That morning I pretended to be asleep. I kept my eyes tightly shut, even when the nurse came in, her voice hushed. "Happy Mother's Day, Ilara." I feigned a deep, heavy sleep, so I wouldn't have to go down, wouldn't have to see, wouldn't have to feel the searing pain of my own abandonment. I lay there, listening to the muffled sounds of celebration from downstairs, tears silently tracing paths from my temples to my pillow. My 5 children, my 5 beautiful children, whom I had nurtured, protected, loved with every ounce of my being. Not one card, not one call. The silence that day was heavier, sharper than any other. It felt like an accusation. My health, it's not what it used to be. My knees ache constantly, making every step a monumental task. My eyesight is failing, making it hard to read my old books. And sometimes my heart, it feels like it skips a beat or flutters wildly. A bird trapped in a cage. I don't tell the nurses. Not usually. I save my medication sometimes, not wanting to be a bother, not wanting to draw attention to my weakening body. I pretend to be fine when they ask. "Are you feeling okay, Ilara?" "Oh, perfectly fine, dear." I'd lie, forcing a smile, even as a wave of dizziness washed over me. I'm afraid, you see. Afraid of becoming even more of a nuisance, even more of a problem. Afraid of dying alone, of no one noticing, of my last breath being swallowed by the sterile quiet of this room. The fear is a cold hand clutching my throat in the middle of the night. Sometimes the loneliness becomes unbearable, a physical weight. I'll make my way to the nurse's station, my steps slow and shuffling. "Excuse me, dear," I'll say, my voice a frail whisper. I just wanted to ask, is there any mail for me today? Even though I know there won't be. Or, could you help me adjust my blanket? It's a little chilly tonight." A flimsy excuse, just to have a human being pause. Just to have a pair of eyes meet mine for a moment. They're kind, usually. Patient. But I see the flicker of pity in their eyes, the practiced efficiency in their movements. They are paid to care, not to love, and I am ashamed of needing so much, of wanting so little. Just a moment of connection, just a moment of being seen. Then came the day when the last shard of hope was irrevocably shattered. It was a Tuesday afternoon, a particularly dreary one, even for this place. The rain outside was relentless, mirroring the dull ache in my chest. There was a special storytelling circle planned for the residents in the main lounge. A chance to share memories, they said. I hesitated as always, but the loneliness was a tangible presence, pressing in on me, suffocating me, and a tiny foolish part of me still clung to the notion that if I shared my story, someone might listen. Someone might remember that I was once vibrant, once loved, once important. I made my way down the long silent corridor, my cane tapping a rhythm against the polished floor. The lounge was bustling, more so than usual. The staff had set up rows of chairs and there was a small stage. Families were scattered among the residents, some laughing, some leaning in attentively. I found an empty seat near the back, my heart pounding with a strange mix of anticipation and dread. And then I saw him, my Daniel. He was standing near the entrance by the little refreshment table talking on his phone. My Daniel, my firstborn. My stomach lurched. My breath caught in my throat. He looked older, of course. His hair thinner, a little more silver at the temples, but it was unmistakably him. He was wearing a smart blue suit, just like he wore for his high school graduation the day he told me, "Mama, I did it for you." My hands began to tremble uncontrollably. But it wasn't from Parkinson's, it was from a desperate, searing hope that sprang to life in my chest, a phoenix rising from the ashes of 1,000 forgotten days. He's here. He came. He remembered. I started to push myself up from the chair, my old bones protesting. But the surge of adrenaline momentarily overpowered the pain. I wanted to call out his name, to run to him, to feel his arms around me just one more time. But my voice, like my body, felt brittle, fragile. He was still talking on the phone, his voice low, but I could hear snatches of his conversation. He was laughing, a sound I hadn't heard directed at me in years. Yes, she's absolutely settled, he was saying, his back turned slightly to the room. The best decision for everyone, honestly. So many activities, the staff are wonderful. She loves it here. My heart, which had soared moments before, began to plummet. She? Who was she? Then he continued. No, truly. You should come visit. Mrs. Albright is doing wonderfully. My mother? Oh, my mother is doing just fine, too. She's well looked after. Yes, she's very content. My mind reeled. Mrs. Albright? He was talking about another mother, another woman in this very home. And then he glanced over his shoulder. His eyes met mine. For a brief, agonizing moment, our gazes locked. My Daniel. His face, usually so guarded, held a flicker of something. Recognition, perhaps? Guilt? A fleeting ghost of the little boy who called me his queen. My breath hitched. I offered a tiny, hopeful smile, my lips trembling. A desperate plea for recognition. It's me, my Daniel. Your mama. But then his eyes, which had met mine, slid away. Quickly. Almost imperceptibly. He didn't smile back. He didn't acknowledge me beyond that cold, distant glance. He didn't even give me that general nod he sometimes gave to all the residents. He simply looked through me, as if I were a pane of glass, or an inconvenient, blurry part of the background. He finished his call with a polite, "Yes, do come visit Mrs. Albright." And then, with purpose, he turned and walked directly towards the other end of the lounge, towards a different section, disappearing into a hallway I knew led to the more private rooms. He hadn't come for me. He hadn't seen me. Not really. He had come for another mother, to visit another woman, and in doing so, had utterly erased my existence. The buzzing in my ears wasn't from old age this time. It was the sound of my heart shattering into a million irreparable pieces, the hope that foolish, stubborn ember was finally, violently extinguished. The silence, which I thought I knew, deepened, becoming an absolute suffocating void. I sank back into my chair, the sudden weakness in my legs almost sending me to the floor. He had walked past me, looked straight at me, and seen nothing. Or worse, he had seen me and chosen to pretend I wasn't there. My Daniel, who I had raised alone, who I had sacrificed everything for, now used my very presence in this place as a casual lie to reassure a stranger about another resident. My mother is doing just fine. She's very content. The words echoed in my head, a cruel, mocking whisper. Content? I was a withered leaf, barely clinging to the branch. I didn't stay for the storytelling circle. I couldn't. I made my way back to my room, each step heavy, each breath a struggle. The world had gone dull, gray. The silence, it wrapped around me. A thick, cold shroud. My hands. They don't just tremble now. They shake with a profound, desolate sorrow. There is no hope left. There is only the certainty of this utter, complete, and irreversible solitude. I am not just forgotten. I am erased. And the worst part? I am still here, still breathing, still waiting for nothing. The silence that followed Daniel's dismissal, that cold, deliberate glance through me, wasn't just loud. It was a scream, a silent scream in the hollow chamber of my heart. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, seeing not the peeling paint, but the ghost of his 6-year-old face, sticky with chocolate cake, calling me queen, And with that image, the question, the agonizing, relentless question, began to echo in the cavern of my mind. Where did I go wrong? I traced the lines on my wrinkled hand with a trembling finger, each one a map of a forgotten journey. 50 years. More than 50 years I poured my life into them. Every decision, every sacrifice, every breath was for my children. Was I too busy? I worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs, cleaning houses, mending clothes, scrubbing floors until my knees ached and my back screamed. I remember one winter the furnace broke, and I stayed up all night, wrapping them in blankets, making hot tea, while the icy wind rattled our small cottage windows. I was tired, yes, always tired, but it was a tiredness born of love, a willingness to break my own body to keep theirs safe and warm. Did they see that? Or did they just see a mother who was always rushing, always absent, chasing another dollar? Did they think I valued work more than them? Oh, my darlings, every single penny earned was a brick in the foundation of their future. It was for them, or was I too strict? I remember Robert, my mischievous Robert, when he painted the spaceship on his bedroom wall. My heart had leaped with exasperation, but I had hidden a smile. I taught them right from wrong, yes. I taught them to be respectful, to be honest. I taught them to put others first, to care for family. Was that a fault? Did I demand too much? Did my quiet looks, meant to instill discipline and kindness, somehow sour into a perception of judgment, of disapproval? Did they resent the rules, the chores, the sacrifices I asked them to make, however small, without understanding the larger ones I made for them? My Clara, my sweet Clara. I remember her once crying because I made her share her favorite doll with Lena. "But, Mama, it's mine," she wailed. "Darling," I'd said, taking her tiny hand. "Sharing is how we show love. We take care of each other in this family." Did that lesson, meant to bind us closer, somehow push them away? Sometimes a flicker of anger would ignite in my chest. How dare they? After everything? That anger, sharp and hot, would burn for a moment, a defiant spark against the overwhelming cold. They have their busy lives, their families, their careers. Don't I? Didn't I? I gave up my dreams. I gave up any chance of remarriage, of a life for myself because they needed me. They had time for soccer practice, for ballet recitals, for big meetings. They had time for Mrs. Albright, apparently, but not for Mama, not for Ilara. My anger would fester, a bitter wound. But then, almost immediately, a wave of crushing guilt would wash over me. No, Ilara, don't think that. They are good children. They are just busy. The world is different now, more demanding. It's not their fault. The guilt was worse than the anger. The guilt made me feel selfish, ungrateful, for even wanting more, for even daring to feel abandoned. It made me want to apologize for existing, for being a burden, for having these thoughts. I forgive them, you see. I truly do. I forgive them for their busy lives, for their hurried calls, for their convenient excuses, for their ultimate abandonment. I even forgive Daniel for looking right through me as if I were a ghost. I forgive them because what else is a mother supposed to do? Hatred would only consume what little is left of me. But the forgiveness, it hurts more than any hatred ever could. It's a forgiveness that doesn't bring peace. It's a forgiveness that aches. A hollow space in my chest where love used to live. Now just an echo. It's the pain of letting go, not just of them, but of the hope, the inherent, indestructible hope a mother carries for her children's love. It's accepting that a bond I believed was unbreakable, forged in sleepless nights and endless sacrifice, simply dissolved. The pain of being forgotten doesn't go away with forgiveness. It just settles deeper like fine dust, coating every corner of my soul. I often think about writing them a letter. I compose it in my head, over and over, sometimes late at night, when the silence is so heavy it feels like a physical presence. I imagine the crisp white paper, my trembling hand guiding the pen. My dearest children, I would begin. My Daniel, my Clara, my Robert, my Leo, my Lena. Just writing their names, hearing them in my mind, brings a fresh sting to my eyes. I hope this letter finds you well, my darlings, and that your children are thriving. Little Thomas, is he still playing soccer? And Emma, has she gotten her pony yet? My heart aches to know these things, to hear your voices, to see your faces. I would tell them about the roses I can no longer tend, the way the sunlight used to filter into my old kitchen, the warmth of the fire on a cold night. I would tell them about the dreams I have, where we are all together again, sitting around the old oak table, laughing, sharing stories, the smell of gingerbread filling the air. And then I would tell them about the loneliness, the deafening silence, the fear of dying alone. I would try to explain, not to accuse, but to make them understand the profound emptiness, the constant ache, the unraveling of a life that was once so rich, so full of purpose. But I never write it. The words form in my mind, beautiful and painful, but they never reach the paper. Because what would be the point? They would read it perhaps with a sigh, with a fleeting pang of guilt, and then they would put it aside. Another burden, another reminder of an old woman they've already decided they can't make time for. Or worse, they wouldn't read it at all. It would sit unopened, just like my heart, waiting for a connection that will never come. Hearing their voices on the phone, even for an apology, would only deepen my longing. It would be a temporary balm, followed by an even sharper pang of loss when they inevitably hung up, rushing back to their important lives. It's better not to bother them. It's better not to reopen a wound that has finally begun to scab over, even if it's a fragile, painful scab. The dreams, though. Oh, the dreams are vivid. They are cruel, beautiful tortures. I dream of Christmas in my old house, the lopsided tree glowing, the aroma of cinnamon and pine, the chaotic symphony of my children's laughter. Daniel is lifting Leo onto his shoulders to put the star on the tree. Clara is helping Lena decorate gingerbread cookies, her little nose dusted with flour. Robert is trying on a handmade wooden soldier hat, his eyes sparkling with mischief. And I am there, in the middle of it all. My hands stained with flour and love, my heart full to bursting, watching them, hearing them, feeling them. I hear Daniel's voice clear as a bell. Mama, you're my queen. I feel Clara's soft hand in mine. I feel the warmth of their bodies, the sweet chaos of their lives. And then I wake up. I wake up to the sterile white walls, the quiet hum of the fluorescent light from the hallway, the faint antiseptic smell. I reach out and my hand finds only the cold plastic of the bed rail, the laughter, the warmth, the scent of cinnamon. It all vanishes like smoke, leaving behind only the harsh reality of this room, this solitude, this endless aching emptiness. It's a moment of profound despair, a fresh bereavement every single morning. Maybe a mother's love isn't always reciprocated. That's the painful acceptance I've had to come to. I loved them, fiercely, unconditionally, with every fiber of my being, and I believed that love was a reciprocal force, a powerful current that would flow back to me, sustaining me in my old age. But it didn't. It flowed out of me, into them, and then it was gone, absorbed, forgotten. I see it now. They needed me when they were small, when I was their world. But once they found their own worlds, their own suns, I became a distant fading star. It's not their fault, I tell myself. It's just life. It's how the world turns. Children grow up, they leave the nest. But some nests, they completely disappear. Some mothers, they are simply forgotten. And I, Alara, am one of them. I am a testament to a love that was given freely, utterly, without expectation, and in return, received only silence. And the silence is the loudest sound of all. If you're watching this, if you have elderly parents or grandparents, or any old soul in your life who once poured their love into you, please listen to my words. Don't scroll away. Don't tell yourself you'll watch it later. Because later might be too late. One day, you will be in my place. Your body will ache with age. Your senses will dim. And your world will shrink to the confines of a small room. You will stare at nothing, waiting for a visit that never comes, for a voice that never calls, for a touch that never reaches you. And in that silence, you will remember my words. The small gestures you see, they are everything. It isn't about grand pronouncements or expensive gifts. It's about a 5-minute phone call, just to hear your voice, to know you're thinking of me, to know I exist. A quick text message, perhaps, with a blurry photo of my grandson, little Thomas, laughing at soccer practice, even if he doesn't remember my face. Just a glimpse of the life I helped create. Still vibrant. Still moving. A handful of fresh lavender from your garden, left by my bedside, filling this sterile room with the scent of home. A shared joke about an old family memory, one that only we would understand, sparking a moment of genuine laughter, a rare warmth in this cold chest, an unexpected "I love you" whispered into the phone, or even sent in a shaky email. These aren't just words. They are lifelines. They would be like winning the lottery for me, a fortune of love that money cannot buy, because they mean I am not utterly forgotten. At the end of life, what truly matters? It isn't the grand careers, the big houses, the accumulated wealth. Believe me, I know. I worked my fingers to the bone, saved every penny. Not for myself, but to give them a better start. And where did that lead? No, what matters are the memories, the warmth of a child's hand in yours, the sound of their laughter, the knowledge that your love made a difference, that you are still cherished, still valued. It's the human connection, the thread of belonging that keeps us from floating away into the vast emptiness. Money can pay for a clean room, for food, for medication, but it cannot buy a mama. It cannot buy a loving touch. It cannot buy a minute of true, unhurried attention. My own body, it's giving out. I don't tell the nurses the full truth. Not usually. My heart, it skips beats now, and sometimes it races, feeling like a frantic bird trying to escape my chest. My breath grows shallow, often, and I feel a strange lightness in my head, as if I'm already halfway to somewhere else. I am tired, so tired. But my greatest fear isn't death itself. It's dying alone. It's closing my eyes for the last time with no familiar face beside me, no hand to hold, no voice whispering goodbye. It's the fear that I will simply cease to be, and no one will notice until the next morning's rounds. That is the true cruelty. And then, just a few days ago, came the final brutal twist of the knife. It was late afternoon, and the door to my room was slightly ajar. I was drowsing, half listening to the hushed voices from the hallway, a familiar murmur of nurses charting and discussing the day. But then 2 names drifted into my consciousness, clear as a bell, snapping me awake. "Ilara's old house," one said. "Yes, the beautiful Victorian on Elm Street." The other replied. My heart stopped. "My old home, did you hear?" The first nurse continued, her voice lower now, almost a conspiratorial whisper. "The children sold it. For a fortune, they said. Nearly $1 million. My breath hitched. $1 million. My home. The home I was told was too much to manage. Too big. Not safe. The home they cleared out, calling my life's possessions stuff." I clenched my trembling hands. Then the second nurse sighed. "Poor Ilara. And they're still only paying for the minimum care package here. Just enough to keep her comfortable. But certainly not from that kind of money. It mostly went to the children, didn't it? For their investments," I heard. The words hung in the air, heavy, poisonous, suffocating me. Their investments. My heart, already a fractured thing, imploded. It wasn't about my safety. It wasn't about being too much to manage. It was about money. My home, my sanctuary, the very foundation of my children's lives, had been a commodity. I was a liability, and my house, an asset to be liquidated for their benefit. And I, Ilara, their mama, who had given them everything, was left with the minimum, while they profited from my past, from my sacrifices. Suddenly, Daniel's visit to Mrs. Albright, his casual lie about, "My mother is doing just fine," it all made a horrifying, sickening sense. He wasn't just abandoning me. He was exploiting me, using my situation as a shield for his own conscience, while simultaneously benefiting from my dispossession. This wasn't just neglect. This was a calculated, cold betrayal. The guilt I had carried for them, for their busy lives, evaporated, replaced by a searing, white-hot pain. Don't let this be your story. Don't leave it for later. Later might be too late. Hug your parents. Tell them you love them. Ask them about their day, not just how you can quickly get off the phone. Ask them about their memories. Listen to their stories, no matter how many times they've told them. Hold their hand. Look into their eyes. See them. Not a burden, not a problem, but the person who loved you before you even knew what love was. My strength is fading. My time is short. And I, Alara, still hope. Even after everything, after the shattered trust, the profound betrayal, the absolute solitude, I still hope to see my Daniel, my Clara, my Robert, my Leo, my Lena, one last time. To feel their touch, to hear their voices, to know that they remember the mama who gave them everything. Is that too much to ask before I close my eyes forever? This was my story. My name is Alara, and I am just one of millions. Millions of older souls who once cradled tiny babies, wiped away tears, sacrificed everything, only to find ourselves fading away in silence, forgotten in the twilight of our lives. My heart, it feels like an ancient, fragile thing now, heavy with the weight of memories and the emptiness of promises unkept. If any part of my story, Daniel's chocolate-stained face, Clara's tiny hands covered in flour, Robert's dandelions, Leo and Lena's intertwined laughter, or the bitter sting of Daniel's glance right through me, if any of that touched your heart, truly touched it, then please, I beg you, don't wait. Don't put off that call, that visit, that simple message, until tomorrow. Because for some of us, tomorrow might already be too late. Time, my darlings, it doesn't go back. It marches relentlessly forward. And regret, that bitter, burning regret, is the only feeling that has no cure. It will gnaw at your soul far more fiercely than any pain I have ever known. Think of your own mama, your own papa. Do they sit in a quiet room, dusty photographs, their only companions? Do they listen for a phone call that never rings, just like my own silent sentinel? Do they pretend to be perfectly fine, dear, so as not to be a burden? My home, my life's work, sold for their investments, while I was left with the minimum. Don't let that be your story. Don't let that be their story. I hope you share this video. Share it with someone you know who needs to hear this message, who needs to open their eyes and truly see the precious, finite time they have. And if you have elderly parents, if your mama or papa is still with you, still breathing, still able to feel the warmth of your embrace, please hug them for me. Hug them tight. Tell them you love them. Tell them you remember. Hug them while you still can. Don't let their last years be filled with this aching, cold emptiness. My children might not remember my name, might not care for my stories, might not understand the profound loneliness that chills me to the bone. But you can choose differently. Cherish them, honor them, be present. Subscribe to the channel, Portraits of Life, Pain in the Soul, for more stories that remind us what truly matters. Stories like mine that beg you to not forget.